Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Today we'll be going over the age-old debate. Should you save your money to pay for the down payment and own your home, or rent? Especially now, after the Great Recession, when the age-old idea that homeownership means you've finally become successful has kind of died out, and young people homeownership has plummeted too. We live in a time when only 35% of people under 35 in the US and 32% of that same age group in the UK own a home. That's compared to over 45% for the same age group not 30 years ago and 64% for the population as a whole now. When we've gone to the very opposite of home ownership as the goal and the only goal, where me and my generation are a generation of renters. Now, there's solid arguments on both sides, sure, to say that it's to do with money and having less of it, but also that there's been a change in attitude. You can see how it's a bit of both. But the recession and the underlying housing market bubble made everyone rethink home ownership. Something that was smart for so long suddenly looks very, very dumb. But underneath it all, what makes more sense if you're under 35? Let's say you do have a chance at home ownership, sorry to anyone living in zones 1 to 6 in London, should you put the effort into saving for that down payment? If we look at the pure financials, the initial cost of renting is the deposit, admin fees, I recently experienced just how extortionate those can get, and also first month's rent. The initial cost for buying is the down payment, and potentially any repair and decoration costs. In no part of the world do these ever add up to the same amount. The average deposit is maybe £1,000, and first month's rent is on average £500 across the UK. Might be different numbers from country to country, but the down payment usually is more. And it's usually around 10 to 25% of the property value, so in the UK, for an average house, it'll be about £200,000, the house value, so the down payment would be about £20,000 to £50,000. And that's some serious savings there. Saving a sum that, assuming you save just 25% of the average salary for under 35s in the UK, means that you should have the money for that down payment in around 7 years. And that's assuming you save about £300 a month. The problem is that is the minimum down payment, which brings us to the second issue. Costs over time. If you rent, that's your monthly rent. Maybe it's £400 or £500 or even £1,000 if you're in an expensive but not necessarily nice, given the high cost of living in London and other big cities. But if you take out a mortgage, it tends to vary because of interest. Now we're at a watershed moment right now because interest rates have been at a rock bottom for so long that it's more or less been free cash for anyone buying a house, assuming you had a down payment ready. But it appears within the next year or so that one or more central banks across the world will increase them from rock bottom, and that'll mean every loan gets more expensive to service. That's not to mention that if you took the minimum down payment, that leaves more to be paid monthly. For 200k as property value, it averages out to around £700 a month. And this is where it gets a bit complicated. The amount you'd be paying for your mortgage each month, assuming you're covering some of the principal too, reduces the amount you owe. That means there's less to be applied interest to, so interest goes down too over time. This happens very slowly at first and a lot faster the more you pay. Whereas renting is a stable business. It only really ever goes up, even when the house prices fall a bit. This is because of something called sticky prices, which I'll cover in a different video. So we can start to see the split. The initial cost definitely favors renters, but over time it becomes cheaper to own. In the current market, for the average property, if you can pay the down payment of at least 25%, the overtime costs are lower for buyers. However, like I said, the current conditions might change within the next year or so, and if interest rates, for a mortgage, not the central bank one, hit around 6%, an increase of only 1.5 to 2% from what it is now, well then it becomes a lot cheaper to rent for the first 9 years. And this goes to the heart of the issue. Are you planning to move, and are you optimistic about making a gain over time? Because we live in an age where you might only have a job for 3 to 4 years and then move. Sure, if you move in the same town or are attached to family, it doesn't make much of a difference, except in the US or Canada where the same town could mean an hour's drive away. But if you see yourself having job mobility, renting is more flexible. Because the housing market, while it's been going up recently, it's not going to keep rising forever. and you never know whether it'll be in a trough at the exact same time that you're trying to move. So what does this all add up to? In short, if the interest rates are 4% or lower, that's at the bank, not the central bank, buying's cheaper. More and renting becomes better. The housing market goes up and down, too many forget this and forgot this in 2007, and you might get stuck with a bigger mortgage than house value, whereas with renting, it doesn't really have an exit cost like that. And finally, renters will always travel light, pack up your stuff and go. But if that doesn't suit you, then buying's better. And if the buying preconditions don't suit you, renting's better. So it is about preferences. In conclusion, if you want to make the investment, because it is an investment and a commitment to buy a home, you'll need an exit strategy, which a lot of people forget when thinking of their house as an investment. You really do need to treat it like any other investment. But true flexibility comes from renting, as long as you don't mind the constant haggling with landlords and estate agents or realtors, as our friends across the pond call them. Don't let yourself be swindled, and do your research to see which one works best for you. Every situation is different, but whatever you do, don't just buy because it's the right thing to do or because every friend that you know does it. That's how you get trapped by banks into spending money that you don't have. As always, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, drop a thumbs up below, comment with your own opinion and your experience if you have any, and subscribe if you really love this kind of content. It really helps the channel. Thank you very much. See you next time. Ciao.